Hello, my name's Charles Delastic. I'm the Managing Director of Blue Bond Tax Planning. We've been inheritance tax specialists for more than 18 years and have helped hundreds of clients save millions of pounds on their inheritance tax. So today's video is around the subject of grandparents gifting money to their grandchildren in order to pay for, say, university fees or school fees, that kind of thing. So what is the best way to set up these kinds of trusts? So welcome back, and today's subject is what is the best way to set up trusts for grandchildren in order to pay for school fees, university fees, or potentially gifts for property or even weddings, for example. Now, really there is no best way. It does depend upon the circumstances, your circumstances as the grandparents, and what you are trying to achieve with the trust. So firstly, let's ask the question, why use a trust at all as opposed to giving the money directly to your children when, say, your grandchildren are very young, and then they can then give the money to their children, your grandchildren. So if the money is, say, for school fees and you give the money to your children when your grandchildren are really young, any income that's distributed from the growth on that investment would then be subject to the parental settlement rules. This basically says that if parents give money to their children who are under 18, any growth on that capital is taxed as if it was the parents' money. And obviously that's not very tax effective. Now, if a trust is set up by grandparents or income is distributed to grandchildren from grandparents, the parental settlement rule simply doesn't apply. And if the money comes from a trust, then effectively any growth on that money can utilise the grandchildren's tax allowances, which is currently £12,500, and therefore that's considerably more tax effective. Basically, because it's grandparents gifting the money and the growth on the money, the parental settlement rules simply don't apply. Okay, now there are three main needs for this kind of money. So it's money to pay for school fees, it's money to pay for university fees, and possibly money for lump sums for weddings, or maybe putting down deposits for homes for your grandchildren. Now, for all three needs, the most suitable way will depend upon the age of the grandparents. So if the grandparents are in their mid-70s, then one needs to be careful about the longevity risk, because the 7-year rule would apply. In other words, are the grandparents going to live 7 years for the gifts to fall outside of their estate? If that's not a possibility, in other words, there's a big risk, then alternative strategies would need to be sought. Okay, and even if you make a gift into a trust, the 7-year rule will apply. Now, the problem with making a gift into a discretionary trust is that it utilises the grandparents' nil rate band allowances, which may not be suitable if they need those allowances for their own purposes, like say they want to put money into flexible reversionary trust where they can get back money in old age if they go into care, that kind of thing. So in that event, maybe a direct gift of a lump sum may be better to the parents, but again, the 7-year rule applies. It really does come down to the circumstances and which is the best way. Now, if the grandparents are much younger, let's say in their 60s, then and the grandchildren are likely to need those school fees well before the grandchildren are in their mid to late 70s, or they're going to meet university age before that time, then a gift and loan trust may be a better option. Now here you put only £10 into the trust and the rest of the money is a loan to the trust. Now that loan is recoverable at any point, but the growth on the money is outside of the grandparents' estate. So that's the point of a gift and loan trust. But because the loan is recoverable, you can then distribute the money to the grandchildren for school fees and university fees at the time required. Now, for the other third point of gifts for future property purchase, you could just gift the money to your children, providing the 7-year issue is taken into account, and then they place that money into a trust for their children, as really the growth wouldn't be subject to the parental settlement rules, because the grandchildren would get the money when they were adults, and therefore that's maybe a suitable route. Lastly, for wealthy grandparents who intend to use family investment companies anyway, you can utilize these mechanisms to pass gifts to grandchildren, and that's a very effective mechanism. So watch those videos on family investment companies. I'll just summarize this by saying this is quite a complex area, and there are so many different ways of doing it that really experienced advice is essential. So if you're wanting to fund your grandchildren's school fees, university fees, or leave money for property or whatever, then give us a call, because we would really tailor make that to suit your circumstances and make sure you did it in the right way. So experienced advice is essential. Okay, so hopefully you found that video useful. If you did, just give us a like, a thumbs up. But thanks for listening, and goodbye for now. Bye.